What's up, guys? Connor OHanlon here for another episode of the Greater Society podcast. And today we have the unfortunate, frequent topic of gun control and a mass shooting being the headlining event of the show. And it's an unfortunate thing to say that this is not the first time, and it probably won't be the last time that we talk about this. It is the thing that we're going to talk about in at least the first half of the show because of what happened and because of the reaction to it online and specifically, of course, from the right wing. Then, as we get through that, we're going to talk about last week's TikTok hearings, specifically with the CEO being brought forth in front of Congress, and the Restrict Act, which is in response to TikTok, somehow not in response to Facebook or Twitter or even Google, which is where the show goes on here, but somehow TikTok, and we will talk about why that is. Then we will talk about some normal, I should say at this point, school board nonsense in America. We're gonna take a little trip down to Florida once again because it's weird because Central Bucks is like this weird limbo of, or echo maybe, not a limbo, of this Florida cancel culture nonsense from the right, the PC coming after our schools and whatever. And we're gonna talk about Michelangelo's David, which that's not exactly, this is not an art show, but of course the canceling of Michelangelo is being is huge. And then we're gonna bring it back in to Central Bucks to round it off as a follow-up to last week's story about the $250,000 that were being paid in legal and consulting fees, because that reporting wasn't wrong, it was understated. And we will talk about that in the later half of the show. But to start us off here, we have, again, this unfortunate reality in America in which we have more mass shootings than there are days in the year. Now, depending on how you define mass shooting, if you want to be nitpicky, we basically, no matter pretty much any definition of mass shooting, which is just multiple people being shot in one incident. Now, again, there are different definitions, but even if we were just using that, so far in 2023, there have been over 100 mass shootings. Over 100. And if I'm recalling correctly, because I don't have the data in front of me, it's about 130. And we haven't even gotten through 90 full days of 2023. Now, I bring this up because this week there was a shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. And this shooting happened in a private Catholic school in Nashville. And the perpetrator was a former student. That is what we know as of right now. Things may change, as they usually do. Things evolve over the course of the stories coming out. But as of right now, and again, as I was looking at before the show, there were conflicting stories that the shooter may not have had that much of a connection or a reason to the school. But as of right now, this 28-year-old did go to the school. And I thought about showing something that I won't show because I think, not that it's not important to see, but I don't know the guidelines of being able to show it on YouTube. So I'll just describe it. I am gonna give kudos in the beginning here to the response team and the police in this situation, because the video that has come out of the response from the police was exactly what you want to see from police. It is pinpoint precision of what we should expect of special ops forces of police that go and respond to these mass shootings. And you see it from the get-go. There's a teacher outside. The cop responds. He runs up. She's telling him all this stuff. He splits. I don't know if he's the sergeant or whatnot. There was multiple cameras, but he splits the units. Some of them go upstairs. Some of them stay on the first floor because the teacher was saying they're up on the second floor. You can see it. You see them split up, and they're clearing each room with precision, but also with a level of diligence and swiftness that we absolutely and desperately need. 6 kids were killed, or sorry, 3 kids, I believe, were killed, and 3 adults were killed in the shooting, but 6 total people were killed. And the shooter was killed by the police, as you can see in the video. And that's why I don't want to show the video, is because you can see it actually happening. But it is about 3 minutes from when the cop enters the school until they get to him, which is extremely fast. So I just want to say that up front, and this is where it's another example, because we're going to talk about guns, but this is another example of why we talk about reforming police. There are times and places when you need special ops forces to deal with situations. There would be fewer situations where these armed and trained special ops were needed if we didn't have high capacity killing machines in the hands of civilians. I don't know the type of guns. I'm not going to speculate. I can assume what type of guns were used here. The shooter apparently had gotten 7 guns, 3 of which were used in the shooting. And these things, some people want to call them a tool. I won't recognize that rhetoric. A gun is a weapon, whether it's for offensive nature or for defensive nature. It is a weapon. And there are common sense reforms that can be done to not eliminate, but reduce these incidents. But before we dive into that, I need to say that the cops' jobs would be easier. Kids would be safer. You and I would be more comfortable going to a movie theater, going to a concert, if these things were taken off the streets. If it was harder to get high-capacity magazines, if it was harder to get an AR-15 or other semi-automatic weapons that can be manipulated into being fully automatic weapons, because the AR-15 is the favorite of mass shooters, but it is not the only weapon that is used by these people. If we actually address the mental health issues in this country, that people that somehow that's not the conversation, and we'll talk about what the conversation is here, but somehow this isn't mental health issue this time. I wonder why that is. Well, what it boils down to is that the shooter allegedly, and there's no evidence to the contrary as of right now, but allegedly was a transgender woman. And that has become the obsessive narrative of the right wing in response to this. the obsession of a transgender person shooting a Christian school. Now, if I were to tell you that we could look at proportionality of mass shootings, we could look at proportionality of shootings in general, or violent crimes, trans people have committed less than their share of the population in mass shootings. So, put it another way. If you extrapolate the percentage of trans people, which is, let's just estimate, 1%, and compare it to the 2,400 mass shootings that have happened in the last whatever years. If you compare it to the since 2018, I know this because I saw it today, 4 people that identify as non-binary or trans have committed mass shootings. And that includes one that earlier this year claimed he was non-binary after the fact to maybe or maybe not try to garner some level of this sympathy, I suppose. So if we're really looking at the statistics, 3 mass shootings since 2018, and if you took on a totally generous estimate, 1 mass shooting a day in 5 years, you're talking about over 1,600 mass shootings. This is rough math. This isn't even the real statistics, because it's way more of this. But I know the fact is that 4 people, because the right wing is talking about it since 2018. 4. That is less than 0.05%. That is probably 0.001%. The fact of the matter is, it does not matter if this person was transgender. It does not matter if it was a cisgender white man, as frankly the majority of mass shootings are. It doesn't matter if it was a young black man, which again gets blamed for shootings in cities. It doesn't matter if it was the rare female mass shooter. It doesn't matter if it was a Christian, a Jewish person, and a Muslim person, a Hindu person, or an atheist. None of that matters. Because when it boils down to it, what happened here was a tragedy where one person took the lives of other people because they had the capacity through a force amplifier, and that force amplifier was a firearm. Now, the blame is being, and someone put it in chat, thought it was a trans man. I don't know. I honestly don't even care. This is the point. It's the shooter is identified as Audrey E. Hale. So Audrey makes me think trans female. Whatever. It doesn't matter. This person's a piece of garbage. That's what it boils down to. Anybody that is willing to do this stuff is this is why, oh my god, it drives me insane. There are good people and there are bad people in almost every sort of group that you can come up with. There are troubled people, and then there are people that are going to do great things. The blame and the focus on this person being trans is a scapegoat for people like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Tucker Carlson, to sick people. And I mean sick them like dogs, not like to the sick people, but they are sick people, to go and attack the trans community, which is already under attack. And then, I'll show you it right now, actually. You'll see things like this, where this is the founder of Students for Trump, executive director, who these right-wingers love the Second Amendment up until a trans person has a gun. I'm reading now. Look at this, another transgender activist showing off their firearm in a threatening demeanor. The useless FBI won't do a thing. He says here, after, to all the keyboard warriors targeting me, please save your energy. You will not find a more dedicated patriot than myself, who ardently supports every American's Second Amendment rights. Obviously that's not true, right? I will continue. Regardless of race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or creed, I believe that all law-abiding citizens have the right to protect themselves and their loved ones, and I will always champion those rights. However, I do not condone the use of firearms as props to intimidate those with differing opinions. If you cannot discern the difference, then you are part of the problem. But this video is a trans person just showing the gun like any other right-winger has done, and I don't support this, but you cannot possibly say that you are a Students for Trump leader. You cannot possibly say that you support the Second Amendment for every single person and then turn around and not be an absolute hypocrite by saying that trans people arming themselves is bad. Trans people, in response to attacks from the right wing, arguably have the best reasoning to arm themselves. If we're really being honest, the way that these people have been attacking the trans community, I cannot possibly blame people for wanting to protect themselves, because the government hasn't done it, because the police haven't done it, their schools haven't done it. So our elected officials refuse to do anything. In the past, let's say, since 2016 or 2016, when the Las Vegas shooting happened, what has been done on guns? Since Parkland has happened, what has been done on guns? Nothing. They banned bump stocks? Oh, great. Now they're just printing 3D crap that makes a gun fully automatic so that you can just go and unload. They don't ban the high-capacity magazines. They don't make universal background checks. They don't have gun buyback programs. They don't have license, registration, and insurance requirements for firearms, which should be the bare minimum. No. They're going to LARP, and they're going to blame transgender people, and they're going to blame anything other than the guns. Anything. When it's a left-winger, it's the leftist ideology. When it's a right-winger, it is mental illness. If it's a transgender person, it's because they're trans. If it's because it's a white person, it's because there's mental illness. Like, why can't we just possibly take out the root issue? Why can't we do multiple things? Why can't we walk and chew gum at the same time? Why can't we ban high-capacity magazines and also increase Medicaid funding that provides the majority of mental health services to people that need it, that can't afford it, that might not have work, that might not have employer-produced healthcare, provided healthcare? This is insane. We're the only country in the world that deals with this. Not the only country in the Western Hemisphere, the only country in the world. We have a culture that fetishizes guns, that fetishizes violence, that thinks it's okay. We have a mainstream media that doesn't denounce bigots for otherizing people. This is not a argument of left versus right. This is an argument of, do you care about the average person? Do you care about kids? Do you care about the future of any of our community, the protection, the freedom, if your freedom infringes upon other people's freedoms, that inherently makes it not a freedom. It makes it an infringement. But of course, this is not the only tweet that I have to show you on this. Here we have, let's see, where do we want to go? Okay, let's stay on this. Okay. Here we have, I'm just going to read it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, quote, how much hormones like testosterone and medications for mental illness was the transgender Nashville school shooter taking? Everyone can stop blaming guns now. And I'll show you, because it's real. Here it is. This is what her actual tweet. This is a verified tweet. Is she... So... This is why I think it's a transgender man, by the way. Oh, sorry. That actually makes sense that it's a transgender man then. Because... if we're saying testosterone increases the likelihood for someone to be violent, you're almost there. You almost understand that it's not trans people that commit mass shootings. The overwhelming majority of mass shootings are committed by young men under the age of 25. Does that... Oh, Connor, does that mean we should ban people that are under 25 from having guns? No. Does it mean that we should highly restrict them? Yeah. Does it mean that we should make it harder for them to get them? Yeah. Does it mean that you should have training to get a gun? Yeah. Does it mean that you should have a license? Yes. Does it mean that you have to have insurance, and if you have your gun accidentally or on purpose injure or kill somebody, that you should be sued for basically all that you're worth? I think so. Responsible gun ownership is okay. But when this happens day in and day out, I mean, people talk about crime and they talk about this, that, and the other thing. Take away the force amplifier. Make the job of the cops easier. Because you cannot possibly... I mean, if you look back in history... I mean, I don't even want to go there. This is where it's like... We're not advocating for taking all the guns away, but you cannot blame people when they're marginalized and otherized, violently chastised and put in the corner, for them arming themselves. You look at the Black Panthers. That's what I was going to talk about. This is why people don't talk about this. But the reason why the Black Panthers were armed is because of self-defense, protect themselves, because the government wouldn't do it. The government let them get beat up. The government was the ones doing the beatings and the killings. So if we have sitting congressmen, we have senators otherizing and targeting the trans community, it is unacceptable. I mean, this is, it's so, all of it conflates, all of it joins together. The rancid ideology and the rhetoric is what endangers people. They were not these, it's not a, well, let me show you this tweet. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. This is an interesting, I was listening to Packman's show earlier today. This is a tweet from David Packman, who's a progressive YouTuber, podcaster. He deleted this tweet. It says, very surprising that there would be a mass shooting at a Christian school. And of course, I'll preface this from here on out. He's proving the point in saying not that Christian people deserve it, not that kids deserve it, not victim blaming, not saying anything other than thoughts, prayers mean nothing. If you are an average person, to say you have my thoughts and prayers, that's fine. If you are the president, a senator, a congressperson, the governor, the lieutenant governor, the state rep, the state senator, the city councilman, the mayor. You have a duty and an obligation to at least push the narrative forward and to push for more restrictions on firearms to protect people. However, the tweet goes, very surprising that there would be a mass shooting at a Christian school, given that the lack of prayer is often blamed for these horrible events. As it is. Is it possible they weren't praying enough or correctly, despite being a Christian school? So, obviously, he's being facetious. Donald Trump Jr. responds to David Pakman. Imagine being this big of a POS. Unfortunately, this is what many on the left think of you if you have traditional American views. And this, of course, these traditional American views he's talking about is saying that it's okay to have mass shootings. It's okay and normal to have children being murdered and slaughtered in their school. It is okay, in Donald Trump Jr.'s opinion, to have teachers and janitors being murdered and executed in their school and in their workplace. That is not traditional American values that I have. Now, that might be his traditional American views, not the ones that I have. But I'll continue his tweet. And don't follow blindly and capitulate to their every lunatic whim. Truly evil at this point. And Pakman responds to this, saying, if traditional American views is witnessing nonstop mass shootings and doing absolutely nothing about it, then yeah, count me out. Which is exactly the response. This is where the right wing always will use identity as a way to perpetuate the current hierarchy of society. They will always punch down. They will always otherize and make people feel not welcome, feel like they're not a part of the Americana that we're talking about. And we should denounce people that do bad things. That is an easy thing to do. Oh my God. This is why it's so frustrating. Nobody's defending this person for doing it. Nobody is saying it's good. Nobody is saying because they're transgender that it's good that they're doing this. Like, nobody is saying that. Everybody on the left says it's bad. You know what we say when a white man does it? It's bad. When a Muslim terrorist does which we haven't had in recent years, but like, let's rewind and go back to like 2015 or like the Boston Marathon where these terrorist attacks happen. It's not like we're just like, oh, it's this person's identity that's the problem. It's this person's identity that's the problem. No, the weapon and the access and the ability to committing mass murder is the issue. That is the issue. Now, of course, you could easily just say, "Oh, Connor, they have proposals. They have things that they want to do." Actually, the representative from Tennessee, he has this to say:
3 precious little kids lost their lives, and I believe 3 adults. I believe it's and the shooter, of course, lost their life too. So it's a horrible, horrible situation, and we're not going to fix it. Criminals are going to be criminals, and my daddy fought in the Second World War, fought in the Pacific, fought the Japanese, and he told me, he said, buddy, he said, if somebody wants to take you out and doesn't mind losing their life, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it. 3.
So there you go. That's what he thinks. The congressman, I believe, that represents the area, he's at least from Tennessee, says, there's nothing we can do about it. If somebody wants to kill you, too bad, I guess. We can't do anything about it. That's his opinion. Now, they propose nothing. They have nothing. There is no solution from them. Here we have a woman just standing outside the school while Fox News is live, coming up with a much better response than, 1, Fox News, but 2, any of these Republican representatives. Any of them.
having to cover all of these mass shootings. I'm from Highland Park.
So it cuts out the volume here. I think they were going to try to cut it out, but
Family vacation with my son, visiting my sister-in-law. I have been lobbying in D.C. since we survived a mass shooting in July. I have met with over 130 lawmakers. How is this still happening? How are our children still dying, and why are we failing them? Gun violence is the #1 killer of children and teens. It has overtaken cars. Assault weapons are contributing to the border crisis and fentanyl. We are arming cartels with our guns and our loose gun laws, and these shootings and these mass shootings will continue to happen until our lawmakers step up and pass gun safety legislation. I'm pretty sure this was an unsecured weapon that this teenager got a hold of. We can't even pass gun safety, like safe storage laws in this country to protect kids from getting a hold of weapons that they shoot each other with.
so there you have it. That's just a random survivor of a prior school shooting or prior mass shooting happening to be at the same, the scene of another mass shooting. Now that's becoming more of a normal thing in America, which is again a sick reality that we're living with. I think I have one more thing on this, and that is nope. That's it. That's all I got on that. I'll respond. Mickey in chat says, I have family that owns ARs. They're very responsible. Locker with retina scans. I can't comment on the issue. I know this won't be the last one. Yeah. So here's the thing. That's why I say, look, I've shot guns. I won't say if I own or I don't own one, right? There is a level of responsibility in the owner, so in the individual level, and there's a level of responsibility from the government. On the individual level, you can do everything that you want to be safe. Now remember, the NRA, which now is a propaganda arm to sell more weapons, used to be an organization that promoted gun safety, responsible gun ownership, as you were talking about. When I grew up, it was starting to take that turn, but I remember learning about the NRA when I went and shot, when I was learning how to handle a gun. These are not the people that we're talking about when we talk about restricting it. Because those people, if you have a retina scan, if you have the locks on your guns and you have them in a safe house or whatever it is, right? Like whatever we as a collective would consider safe, whatever we as a collective would consider reasonable, you are not the person that is going to go out and break all these issues, and probably would not mind if this is something that is like a hobby of yours, or shooting to go hunting. You probably wouldn't care to incur a little bit more cost to be safe and to protect. If I could tell you that it would protect, I don't know, your extra $50, $60, $70 a year in your insurance, or whatever it is, like whatever we decide could save one person's life, I think that people would be able to eat that cost if they were responsible. The problem is the people that are not responsible and don't give a damn when people die, and they want to utilize and politicize death and destruction for their own political gain. They are the ones that won't budge. And in chat says, yes, everyone should be legally forced to have safe gun storage. Now oh my God, there's so much to this issue. There are ways that you can have a gun, even in your house, and store it properly. There are mechanisms to stop the gun from firing. You just God, they're all available. They're all available. But because we have a spineless group of leaders in Washington, they will not do anything. And for that matter, we have a broken and corrupt Supreme Court that won't even hear cases that have any sort of peripheral impact on the Second Amendment. That is a shame, and people should be ashamed of themselves for doing that. And if you're not speaking up now, then I don't know. If you're not speaking up after Sandy Hook, after Uvalde, after Las Vegas, which, my God, I can tell you where I was sitting when I saw what happened in Las Vegas. People forget that hundreds of people got shot in Las Vegas. My God. I mean, this is one of the most, like, black-pilled issue that exists in America, where people just throw their hands up and just say, yep, this is just going to happen. This is just going to happen. We'll get Kevlar backpacks. How about that? Yeah, safe gun storage after passing background checks, which universal background checks don't exist in America. Training, mental health assessments. Yes, Nashville has no red flag laws, which might have stopped most recent school shooter from legally. Yeah, well, all of that's the case. All of that's real. But until there is doesn't have to be wholly universal, but if there is not federal legislation that restricts this stuff, for every law that Philadelphia passes, the middle of, I don't want to throw any other Pennsylvania counties under the bus, right? But just like, if you're out in Pittsburgh and you cross the border into Ohio, you can get a gun. Although Pennsylvania is very easy to get a gun. But, like, in theory, for every locality that makes it harder, if Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or New York or Cleveland or Las Vegas, for that matter, any of these places want to restrict it on the local level, well, the state can go, actually, no, you can't do that. Or, actually, we're going to let people do this and have open carry and all this different stuff because the state has supremacy over the locality. And the Supreme Court will always, with this makeup of the Supreme Court, will shoot down every single thing that is proposed. From chat, I also really like the proposal to force private gun sales through the ATF and allow the ATF to keep electronic... Yeah, so that's the registration part of the license, registration, and insurance. We don't know who has guns. And in fact, that's why I don't say, because, if you, oh my God. This is getting me fired up. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read this, that's a typo, but if a gun you purchase gets used in a criminal shooting, you're about to get a visit from the big boys. Yes, that's exactly what should happen. That's exactly what should happen. And we just have no spine when it comes to this. We have no real leaders on this issue. Like, the closest we had to one that brought it to the forefront was Beto O'Rourke, and he got bodied in the presidential primary, and he lost in Texas for the governorship. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it starts, because the local... Usually I'd say start local. But the problem is that the local gets overridden on this issue. So for every local thing, it's tough to possibly override and preemptively get in front of the state, for that matter. But that's enough. I am fired up at this. So let's go from one form of otherizing from the Republicans to another. Why not, right? And can I just say, while we're on the topic, and I'm not in the business of telling Republicans how to do anything, for that matter, but if you were a Republican and you want to have the respect of, yeah, I would even say if you want to have the respect from progressives, not like a we agree, but just respect, all you have to do, because I'll go to the mat with you and fight over healthcare policy, tax policy, retirement policy, wealth inequality, all this different stuff. But the issues of identity, race, gender, just stop. Just stop. The Republicans are playing a short game instead of a long game. And again, I am not giving them advice because I want the Republicans to win. But you see it in the otherization of the LGBTQ plus community, and you're gonna see it here with Chinese people, with China in particular. But it takes a form of racism against Chinese people, which not all Asian people, which I know might come to a shock, are Chinese. So when you see upticks in Asian hate crimes following COVID, that's a direct tie to Trump and all of them talking about the quote China virus. Now again, that's the same thing that happened in the response to 9/11, where even people that weren't Muslims, not that the Muslim people deserved it, but people that weren't Muslim, but that were Middle Eastern and wore similar clothing, were getting attacked and had hate crimes committed against them. And you can see it now today against Jewish people. You see the rise of anti-Semitism, the continued rise of anti-Semitism, where we're having record after record year of anti-Semitic attacks, while Jewish people make up like 5%. That percentage is made up, so don't. But it is less than 10% of the country, of the world. It's like 3%. Like, can we please, for the love of God, get beyond the otherization, the xenophobia, the ethnic-centric bullshit? My God, it is ridiculous. But here we have the CEO of TikTok, Mr. Shou Chu, which again, I don't know how to say that, but he is the CEO of TikTok. And I will say this now. All social media, all web search browsers, all apps, all, I would probably say most, if not all, video game developers that have some sort of website collect your data. Amazon, which I might be the only one watching or, talking to this video that doesn't use Amazon, but Amazon, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Google, every website, because most of the websites are hosted by Amazon, collects your data and sells it to advertisers, and that is how they make money. These people in Congress that don't know how to open a PDF are asking the TikTok CEO, if TikTok connects to the Wi-Fi, they are asking the TikTok CEO, yeah, as you're seeing in chat, does this Tic Tac computer game happen to access the other devices on my home interweb? Like, oh my God, can we please raise the budget for Congress to hire experts in the fields that they're asked, like in healthcare, in technology, in all these different fields? Please, can we finally decide that that's a priority too, so that we don't have Mark Zuckerberg coming in there and being like, no, guys, Meta is not collecting data. We're not doing anything bad. And then they have Cambridge Analytica that like almost leads to the collapse of, I won't go so far as American democracy, but leads to this absolute shit show of an election. And then 2020 leads to the undermining of a free and fair election. Enough prelude, though. This is a now this collaboration, or whatever you want, however you want to call it, of some of the stuff from the TikTok hearing. So you're gonna hear some eerie music.
I'm making the following commitments to you and to all our users. Number one, we will keep safety, particularly for teenagers, as a top priority for us. Number two, we will firewall protected US data from unwanted foreign access. Number three, TikTok.
So there, of course, because TikTok is owned by, I believe it at least has some, its own ownership at least is from the CCP in China. That is why he's saying that firewall of protection against, foreign, I don't even, to these people, adversaries, as we will talk about in the next video here, but
remain a place for free expression and will not be manipulated by any government. And fourth, we will be transparent and we will give access to third-party independent monitors to remain accountable for our commitments.
So, Mr. Chu, if the CCP tells ByteDance
here's Dan Crenshaw, Republican from Texas.
to turn over all data,
And remember, the CCP is the Chinese Communist Party. That's why and, oh my God, I won't dive into a giant diatribe because people get mad at me. I've gotten people mad at me for not talking about the clips, getting the clips fast enough. But I will remind you that the Chinese Communist Party is communist in name, but is crony capitalist to its core. You can argue about that. We can debate it, whatever. I don't agree with the Chinese Communist Party in any way, but, and I'm not a socialist either, but the Chinese Communist Party is extremely capitalist, except that they control a lot of the stuff. So it's more towards the fascist end than anything.
data that TikTok has collected inside the U.S., even within Project Texas, do they have to do so, according to the Chinese law?
Congressman, first, I'm Singaporean.
That's fine, but there are employees of yours and ByteDance's in China.
We understand this concern.
So, Mr. Chu, would TikTok be prepared to divest from ByteDance and Chinese Communist Party ties?
I don't think ownership is the issue here. With a lot of respect, American social companies don't have a good track record with data privacy and user security. I mean, look at Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Just one example.
The Chinese government has that data.
Congresswoman, I have seen no evidence that the Chinese government has access to that data. They have never asked us. We have not provided.
I find that actually preposterous.
Our commitment is to move the data into the United States to be stored on American soil by an American company, overseen by American personnel. So the risk will be similar to any government going to an American company asking for data.
Which, by the way, again, this is why I said it in the beginning, is not a good thing. If there was one good takeaway from the Andrew Yang presidential campaign, it was noting that if we had to sell our data, if we are allowing, because by default, by opting into utilizing the internet, you're opting into them collecting your data. Now, I opt in to use YouTube. I'm streaming on YouTube right now. That's probably where most of you are watching me. I was at a client. This is how crazy this is. I was at a client for work where I talked about a construction company's invoice. And by the time I got home and I was watching whatever stupid YouTube video about like Overwatch or whatever I was watching, or RuneScape video, I was getting advertisements for the company that I talked about to the client. A construction company. I'm not a real estate developer. I'm not buying. In fact, this weekend, where I was talking about the potential for my capstone project and developing, hopefully, this idea of maybe a commercial kitchen. By the time that I got home, and again, I was watching, YouTube drama videos, I was getting advertisements for refrigerators and sinks and all this stuff. I already have that stuff. It's listening to us. These corporations are already listening to us. It's not good that it's a Chinese company, and it's not good that it's an American company. It's not good that it's Facebook, and it's not good that it's YouTube or Google, and it's not good that it's TikTok. But the fact of the matter is that the only alternative that I've heard is that we don't let them collect our data, or the Andrew Yang model, we get paid for our data, or the current system, which is we just let it rain and companies like Amazon reap the benefits of all of this data that they have on us. In marketing class in college, this is how old this goes back. When I was in college, in marketing class, my professor taught me about the way that companies collect your data and how, I believe it was Target or Walmart, one of those like big box stores, knew the buying patterns of a certain customer because they had their data. Now, again, this could be from a different perspective because they're probably using a scan card, right? They are tracking this person, this woman at the time, and knew that the woman was pregnant before her own father did because of the spending and buying patterns of the person. And that was, it was arguable that they were like, because of the patterns, were getting to basically before the woman even knew. So they started advertising baby stuff. That's dystopian. And in the chat we get the benefits from this too. It's not all malicious reasons. That is, I could not disagree with that more, to be honest with you. The only benefit we get from this, in my opinion, is we get targeted ads. We get things that are targeted towards us, which are predatory, in my opinion. In a consumerist society that is overwhelmingly fixated on selling you crap that you don't need, as somebody that buys crap that I don't need impulsively, that is what the data is used for. That is what the data is used for. These algorithms, and I don't know, I honestly don't even remember if they talk about the algorithm here. The algorithms on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram are toxic. They're destroying people's minds. I know I sound like a boomer, but frankly, they are destroying people's minds. They are making us, I hate going on social media for this reason. They make us envious of other people. We want, and in an American society, we can get, so we go and buy. And they advertise to us, so we buy, and then it's like, well, you just bought this game console. Now you need this game. Now you need this accessory. Now you need this. Now you need that. And it's just constantly flooding with crap. People could argue, oh, the data, I'll give you an argument. The data is good to prevent crime. It's good to prevent terrorist attacks, which there's not been solid evidence to prove any of that stuff either. We study it in school. Like, we have talked about this in the Philadelphia examples of saying, well, how much security do you need to do 10% drop in gun crime? Yeah. The algorithms feed you what you give it. Yes, that's true. And we're all guilty of it. And yes, we all need Totino's pizza rolls. And now I'm gonna have advertisements for Totino's pizza rolls. Here's an example from public health. You Google / whatever food stamps or Medicaid or whatever, the algorithm of Google and other companies use that information to also promote businesses and organizations if they effectively use SEO and data analytics. I'll push back and say, do companies or things that are associated with Medicaid or food stamps outweigh the bullshit and the consumerist, profit-driven advertisers that will actually jump to the top of Google because they pay to be at the top of Google? I can grant certain levels of, yeah, an algorithm after a search, but that's not what these all are. That's really a big difference too. And trust me, after working with food pantries and looking at community fridges, it's not promoting organizations like food pantries at the top. It might promote them in there, but it is not at the top. And that you can argue it's about SEO. You can argue about all this different stuff, right? But in the grand scheme of things, the person with the most money, because they're the advertisers, because they sell the most crap, get to the top. There are, I'm sure, one-offs that actually are beneficial. In my opinion, I think that we should really look at dismantling the ability for these algorithms to work their way into social media at least. We have to look at AI is a whole nother issue. But for this, man, I think we gotta figure out how to pump the brakes.
To be free of all and any government manipulation. This is something that, as far as I understand, no other company, including American companies, are willing to go. So maybe this is something that we can ask the industry to provide, not just us.
Can you say with 100% certainty that TikTok does not use the phone's camera to determine whether the content that elicits a pupil dilation should be amplified by the algorithm?
We do not collect body, face, or voice data to identify our users. The only face data that you will get, that we collect, is when you use the filters to have, say, sunglasses on your face. We need to know where your eyes are. And
Why do you need to know what the eyes are if you're not seeing if they're dilated?
And that data is stored on your local device and deleted after
Yeah, the iPhones do that.
use, if you use it for facial. Again, we do not collect body, face, or voice data to identify our users.
Mr. Chu, has ByteDance spied on Americans at the direction of the Chinese Communist Party?
I don't think the spying is the right way to describe it.
All right.
This is ultimately...
We can differ on
this
that.
is ultimately...
If I have a TikTok app on my phone and
This is it right here.
my phone is on my home Wi-Fi network, does TikTok access that network?
It will have to access the network to get connections to the internet, if that's the question.
Is it possible then that it could access other devices on that home Wi-Fi network?
Congressman, we do not do anything that is beyond any industry norms. I believe the answer to your question is no.
So that's that there. Let's see if I believe I have at least I think I had one. Oh, no. Here I actually do have something that is I'd like to just to throw in. This is a little bonus stuff here before we go into the Restrict Act and the response. I'm from chat. I'm catching up here. To be sponsored post, you must pay to be added The data it's listening to is usually algorithm based. The issue is if people are going to the companies that are paying to be sponsored, it increases their engagement, which then boosts those companies to the other sites. If a company is paying to be at the top or has a better search engine optimization, they will be at the top, and people are, let's just, for the sake of brevity, 99% more likely to click the first search result, even if it's sponsored, because most people that are tech illiterate don't look that it's sponsored. And the government collecting and using this data is not a good argument to say that it's good. None of it, I don't believe that that's good. The data collection is, for most reasons, in my opinion, we could go on about this, I'm sure, not good. Here we have today, as we talk about people being dragged in front of Congress. This is Bernie Sanders questioning the CEO, or the former CEO and founder of Starbucks. But this is Bernie clapping back at a Republican, and I just think it was great.
Misstatements in a shorter period of time than I have ever heard.
Please correct
Well,
me,
if I'm
because
worth
it's
$8
all
million,
public.
excuse me.
It's all public.
Excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right? Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
If I'm worth $8 million, that's good news to me. I'm not aware of it. That's a lie. All right? Number two.
Part of public records.
You're probably looking at some phony right-wing internet stuff. It ain't true.
No,
All right? You should read beyond that. It is not true.
it's
All right?
It's a great palate cleanser. You gotta love a little Bernie action here. And just a final point on this. Final point on this, and then we'll move on. I was talking about both because the advertisements are connected. The advertisements when I say that the advertisements were on my YouTube videos, I'm not talking about I was getting advertisements for construction equipment. My phone was quite literally listening to me and advertised the company. I didn't Google the company. I didn't look up the company. They collected the data because I said the company Granger. And you can look that company up. You probably don't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is because we're not in the construction business. But I'm getting advertisements for it on my YouTube channel, or on when I'm watching my phone. I'm getting all this stuff. I'm not typing in. I'm not looking it up. The algorithm is trained by listening, not by me Googling and searching. But the search results are also impacted by SEO and engagement. We know that. We know that. Here is the quick TikTok summary of what is in the Restrict Act, which has been proposed in the wake of these TikTok hearings.
Internet is about to fundamentally change forever, and it's terrifying. This is Bill S686, also known as the Restrict Bill. You'll probably know it as the TikTok ban bill, but it does so much more than just that. It actually does more than any bill I think we've ever seen. I encourage everyone to read it by going here and clicking the text tab, but here are the main takeaways. Foreign adversaries can change by definition, but a few are already listed. They are the People's Republic of China, including Hong Kong, Special Administration Region, the Republic of Cuba, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and of course, the Russian Federation and Venezuela under the regime of Nicolas Maduro Moros. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but these definitions can change at any time. The bill covers hardware technology like modems, routers, and home cameras, and virtual tech like VPNs, and basically bans them if they are manufactured by or used to contact and deal with foreign adversaries. Speaking of VPNs, using VPNs to bypass banned apps such as TikTok is made a criminal act under this bill, and the penalty, it's a minimum imprisonment of 20 years and a minimum fine of $250,000 or $1 million, depending if you knowingly did so to access banned content. The bill gives the federal government the power to monitor any activity used by these suspected devices, virtual or otherwise. Essentially, they can monitor what you are doing at home 24/7 without even informing you. This includes things such as routers, video games, streaming apps, smart thermostats, Ring cameras, basically anything that uses the internet. Now, the real terrifying part of all of this, as if that all wasn't terrifying enough, is that the bill goes on to state that this will happen by the president appointing a secretary of communication. That secretary then forms a group on their own without any voter input whatsoever This group can have meetings behind closed doors. They don't have to disclose anything. They can ban and deem anything inappropriate or a risk to security at any moment in time. And if they do, they can go through your instant messages, your emails, text, basically anything that uses the internet, and they can censor it. So in summary, this bill can effectively ban anything the government deems inappropriate extremely quickly without warning. The ramifications of this range from breaking up mass communication methods to even watching the cameras in your home, aka spying on you. It really is that bad, and I am not speaking in hyperbole. Please contact your...
So he says go contact your representatives. This is, of course, mostly going to be Republicans that do this stuff, but I'm sure that there are centrist Democrats that also support it. It's something to note. It is not likely to pass, but just something that we should be aware of, that people are trying to do this stuff. But speaking of trying to restrict communication and trying to restrict art and restrict freedom of speech, frankly, broadly, in Florida. Cover your eyes, guys. In Florida, there was a forced resignation of a principal in a school because of the sculpture of David by the radical leftist Renaissance sculptor Michelangelo. We must cancel Michelangelo. He is ruining our society with naked David, which is supposed to be a religious symbol, but we can't. Well, wait, we can't have kids looking at David. Okay, no matter what. Okay, he's not well endowed, but we still can't show that. So this forced resignation, I'm being obviously kind of a jerk about it because it's so stupid that we have to be in 2023 looking at Renaissance sculptures, some of the most iconic and important pieces of art in the history of mankind, and say, we can't show this to children. There's a wiener. David has nuts. The same thing that could be said, I don't remember, there are, I'm thinking back to my art history class in college. You know, we look back at some of the oldest sculptures from ancient times, basically. I don't want to misquote or assign which culture I'm thinking of because it's just going to be stupid. But, there are sculptures of naked men and naked women. It's important pieces of history. It is not implying sexuality because they're naked. The statue of David is not real. It is not a real man. This is the type of nonsense where you get these folks claiming there is implied nudity, there is implied pornography, as we've talked about with the book bans in my alma mater. And we'll talk about my alma mater in a second too. This is quite literally political correctness and cancel culture gone amok. And it is not the left, it is not progressives, it is where it usually comes from, all the way back when they tried to ban Dungeons and Dragons, and ever since, the fundamentalist right wing. Now again, if you were somebody that has a connection to this Renaissance era. I mean, I went to the Museum of Art in Philadelphia, and I was blown away by the religious pictures and the paintings and all this stuff. Even though I'm not personally religious, I am agnostic, right? I went to the church last week and looking at the architecture and the stained glass of Jesus and the listening to people reciting the Beatitudes, and like people don't even know what that is probably. I know because I grew up Catholic, but these things are art and they're connected to our world, whether we believe in certain things or not. Art is art, and it is okay for children to live. I mean, I don't believe that there should be religious like teachings in public schools. However, depictions, I saw it as a kid. I went to a private school when I was in kindergarten through 5th grade. I went to a Catholic school. And there are depictions of when I was a kid, might sound crazy to some people. When I was a kid, The Passion of the Christ came out, and I was dead set on seeing that movie. I wanted to be a priest. I wanted to see that movie with my grandma, and I begged her to take me. And I didn't get to see that movie because of the violence, but I did see depictions of, Jesus being, crucified. And I saw pictures, paintings and all this different stuff covered in blood and, having the crown of thorns and all this stuff, right? These things are not the same. Well, here, loop it back to the beginning. What is worse? A child seeing the statue of David or being in the vicinity of a mass shooting? What is worse? A child being at a drag show? Or I'll even put it this way. How many drag shows are responsible for children's death? 0. Guns, firearms, are the leading cause of death for children. I cannot fathom what goes on in someone's mind to think that Michelangelo's David, and maybe it's because Michelangelo, when I took art history, and I was my 4th grade Renaissance man, believe it or not. The Renaissance period and the Florence, Italy, and all these things, they have a certain resonance with me. So seeing, and I've never gotten to see David, I've never gotten to see the statue, whatever, maybe someday, but it's important to see these monumental things in our textbooks and in slideshows, and the focus on nudity and all this stuff. It seems so obscure in 2023. I don't understand how we're trying to basically cancel people over field trips and pictures of David, where we have classrooms that have like folding mechanisms that make sure that you can trap a shooter into it, and you have buckets. As I saw, I don't know how real this is, but on TikTok, you have schools now providing teachers with buckets with toilet paper and all this stuff in case they can lock themselves in, and if there's no bathroom in there, kids can use that and be like, that's the type of insanity we're dealing with. We have unironic people saying that they want, Kevlar backpacks, but God forbid if we let a 12-year-old see the Statue of David. We're doomed. We're doomed. The last thing I have today is I don't even know how to like prelude this at this point. Last week we talked about the Central Bucks School Board wasting over $250,000 on legal fees and consulting fees for their lawsuit over discrimination based on well, actually, that's not even based on the gender discrimination lawsuit. That is based on the complaint around their discrimination against the LGBTQ plus community. I'll keep it short because I think that you guys, if you want to look up more, there is plenty to dig into at this point, and there's going to be continued flow. Like, this is going to be probably an every week thing where we're going to have 5 to 10 minutes covering whatever craziness happened lately. But last week in a finance committee hearing, or not hearing, but meeting, the Republican majority, the 6-3 Republican majority, admitted, because remember that the Democrats have no control over this at this point, the 6 Republicans said that the legal costs not going to be $250,000, not $500,000, not $750,000, $1 million. And I am now just realizing that the bottom of my scroll says SCOO board. After all of this time, the whole episode, nobody told me that the bottom scroll said SCOO board. Thank you guys all in chat. You guys are all so attentive to my mistakes. Or maybe you just didn't want to hurt my feelings. Yeah. $1 million. $1 million of taxpayer money wasted on being bigots towards the LGBTQ plus community. Way to go. Way to go. I said this on Twitter, and this will be my closing here, I suppose. Not only is this a disgrace to alumni like myself and people in chat, this is a disgrace to people that wanted to bring their families here for their future kids and their future families to be able to go to a great school. Some of the greatest schools, or they used to be at least, in Pennsylvania and in the country for that matter. And while this radical school board is blowing money based on lawsuits against the LGBTQ, well, attacks on the LGBTQ plus community, wage discrimination for women, people are taking note. Families, parents, because I'm the chair of the Democratic Party, come up and tell me, you know, we actually, and this is not just a one-off thing. This is not like, oh, one person told me this. This happens to me probably at least once a week. I have somebody telling me, you know, I have a gay son, or I have a trans son, and they don't feel safe at the school. They don't feel welcome at the school. We're gonna move. That is, I can't even, I can't find the word to describe that. Disheartening. Disgraceful. But for those who can't even grasp the humanity of people not feeling welcome in their home, I'll take it to you on the fiscal level. We'll go CPA on your rear end. When people don't want to live here, which I still want to live here, I still want to fix this community, I still want to make it better. When people don't want to live here, they sell their homes, property values go down. When property values go down, tax revenue goes down. When tax revenue goes down, you can't pay your teachers as much, you can't pay your staff as much. You can't pay for the new football fields. You can't pay for, the theater. You can't make sure that Timmy and Tammy have recorders in middle school. You can't make sure that there's dodgeballs in gym class. Your schools legitimately go down the drain because your tax basis decreases. And unlike the federal government, your local government cannot print its own money. Your local government is actually restrained to how much money it brings in. And if people don't want to live in your community, you are inevitably putting a boot on the throat of the schools that you were supposed to bring to the promised land, basically, to garner a welcoming environment, a challenging environment, an educational landscape that should be challenging kids, preparing them for college or for trade school or for the military, for that matter, for life. And by censoring books, by discriminating against the LGBTQ plus community, by discriminating against women, the school board is destroying what was something that I still am. I'm still holding out hope, but extremely proud of. And I say this week in and week out at this point. $1 million. $1 million wasted for nothing. For nothing. So that you cannot hang a pride flag in your classroom. That's the priorities of this school board. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. And yes, they are destroying public education. That is their goal. Thank you guys all so much for watching or listening wherever you are. If you are watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. Right now. Mickey, no, I will not consider running for school board. We already have school board candidates I helped find. And I'd rather not deal with the threats that the school board gets. So, and I don't think I have the expertise specifically for school board, but I appreciate that. If you are listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts, hit the subscribe or follow button. You can check out our weekly clips. We usually put out 2 on YouTube, so go check those out. And you can follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Yes, despite my anti-social media, you can follow us on those. Greater Society Media. You can follow me on Twitter for as long as I last on there, at Connor OHanlon. And you can support the show at patreon.com/Greater Society Media for as little as $3 a month. And while you're at it, you can go to the description box and hit the link to join the Discord server. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. We got a little extra content for you here today. A little long for everybody. But until next time, everyone, stay safe. Peace.